so we are at 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here today. We are excited to present to you on audience, and my name is Ann Griesel. I'm the project manager for the Towson LAS Web team here at Iowa State University, and I'm going to pass over to Hannah, who is going to start our presentation, and we're going to tag team this one and go ahead and set us off here. Hannah?
Okay, so today we are focusing on a target audience, as Anne said. And my slides aren't turning. Okay, so in our last webinar, we established that a successful website is built based on outcomes that its users want. So who are the users and why are they so important to your site's success? Today, we're going to talk about how to determine who your target audience is and how you can best reach them. So we're going to start by defining the target audience as the group of people identified as being most likely to understand and desire your brand value. Okay, and we can break that down a little bit more broadly into two groups of demographics. How would you describe them? By age, gender, location, education level? Or by psychographics? Are there others like them with common interests, activities, relationships, emotions, and things like that? And so why is this so important? Because personalization is the key to successful online marketing, and we're not going to be able to please everybody. So the better you know your target audience, the faster your site can grow and see success. And we understand that our clients have multiple audiences that they're trying to reach on their websites. And this is one of those things where you're going to want to try to find the right balance, and less is going to be more. Because the more audiences that you're trying to reach, the more watered down your messaging becomes, and the less it feels like your primary audience is being spoken to. They get kind of lost in the mud of it all, and so you want to make sure that you are not over segmenting your audiences, kind of finding the right balance there. And you have to remember that you can't serve multiple audiences unless you have clearly defined each one and how they can be reached. Okay, so we're going to start by breaking down our audiences into primary, secondary, and tertiary. To define your primary audience, you're going to want to ask yourself, if one person could walk up to you and immediately understand and desire your brand value, who would it be? How would you describe them? Are there others like them? This person is typically the decision maker. Okay, and then the secondary audience, who's the next group that could benefit from what you're providing? Not as much as the primary, but their lives are still going to be improved. These people commonly can influence the primary audience or the decision maker. And then lastly, the tertiary audience, they can be directly or indirectly impacted by your work, but they're not going to be like your primary target. They're not enrolling in your classes, they're not renting your facility, things like that. So now we're going to look at some examples where we kind of break this down, starting with the department site.
Excellent. So to get this started, we're going to go ahead and look at Samantha Doe, who is our primary audience person that will be visiting a department site. So we're going to look at a department site and go ahead and go on to the next slide. So this is going to be the person who is your decision maker and your primary audience member. So for a department site, we're going to look at a future student. This is a vision board that can help us understand who a person is that might be visiting your site. This is not an actual real person. The image makes it look like that, but this is not a real person. However, we're stepping into the shoes of that person to create this persona. And to do that, we create an empathy map. And part of that empathy map has different sections that allow you to dive into the different areas of their life and why they would be visiting your site. So first off, we have values, environment. So values and environment are kind of closely related, but when you look at values, you want to look at things that matter to them. Environment are where they're spending their time, or is where they're spending their time. Influences are concepts or ideas that are making this person think, and what actually motivates them. Obstacles can be fears, generally. Excuse me, generally is how I look at that. So what are they scared of? What are they concerned about? And we can walk through those. Once we understand and empathize with this person, then we can start to understand what it is that they need from their website. So Samantha, we're going to just go ahead and get started with her from Leon, Iowa. She likes volleyball, coffee shops, and bike riding. What values to her, a couple things that really matter are career. So choosing a career and the degree in order to get that career. She also is interested in some sports opportunities. She likes to play volleyball and is interested in maybe intramurals or things that are available at Iowa State for her to participate in. In her environment, she spends a lot of time on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We've learned this due to some research in regards to her particular age group and interests, and so we know that that's where she's spending her time. She enjoys hanging out with friends and works at a retail job. Influences. She's getting questions, probably from her folks, about where she sees herself in 5 years and what her plan is to pay for college. So she has some of these questions starting to arise and kind of get asked of her quite a bit. Her obstacles is that she's nervous. She's concerned about the next steps after high school. She's curious about trying to narrow down a major, and she wants to figure out how to finance that education. So what you really need to do on this type of a website for Samantha would be to provide examples of students documenting their journey at Iowa State, trying to show her what the next steps are after high school to alleviate some of that fear and nervousness. Also, she wants short snippets of text that help to answer her questions. She has these questions about trying to figure out a career path and how she goes about that, or how she's going to plan to pay for college, and she needs to be able to find those answers quickly. The content that is written should be written for her and in regards to this empathy map and what's important to her. And she wants to see social media that's written by students and kept updated by students. Students can tell very quickly if social media isn't being updated by someone like them. And if it's being done more as a business sort of just have to do it because students are out here kind of thing. They can tell that, and they're going to stay away from it and not be as interested. But if there is a student documenting their journey, like we've seen Iowa State do with several students writing blog posts and things like that, it's going to really help Samantha on her journey. So the next audience that we have is the secondary audience. And these are going to be, as Hannah said, the audience that influences or kind of can help be a change agent, I guess, in some ways, for potentially the primary audience. So this is Tom and Judy Smith, a random couple, not associated with our first primary audience. This is just a set of parents. They are from Bettendorf, Iowa. They like to play pickleball. It's super popular right now. ISU football is their thing, and they enjoy traveling. So what are their values? Well, their values about looking at a department site at Iowa State is generally going to surround most likely a student that they are looking to help send to the university. They want to know what the cost is. They want to make sure that their child can get a job. They want to make sure that they're safe and that they have a place to live. Their environment is going to be on YouTube and Facebook. They're not really on Instagram. They enjoy high school sporting events and church gatherings. Influences are a lot of other couples like them who have students looking to go to a university, and they're getting asked questions about where their oldest is going after high school, if they're staying in the dorms, or if they're getting an apartment, and all these different questions about college. Their obstacles are unexpected expenses. Um, they they're not sure about what those unexpected expenses are, and they're concerned about missing like application deadlines and things. So what you really want to do is focus on examples of career placement from recent graduates. So where are people graduating from your department working? What are they doing? Where are they getting internships? What sort of plan is your department putting in place to help them get a job? Uh, your faculty availability. Who are your faculty? Are they available to your students? How, when, those kinds of things. What's it going to cost? So these are generic in terms of like tuition, books, and housing costs. So they are going to want to know that information, and they need to be able to get to that information from your department website. Also, they want to learn about learning communities. So every department, I think, has different learning communities that are surrounding students in terms of um, folks studying and graduating and doing activities that are similar to their own. So that's something unique that we offer at Iowa State. The tertiary audience can be indirectly or directly impacted by the work. Often you're going to see like it's kind of a wait and see. So these are could potentially be donors. So let's look at a donor real fast. Donors are people who, in this case, um, want to be able to provide funding for your department. Jill is a founder and CEO. Let's say her role is basically to work with other folks who would like to donate, and she's kind of a team lead to donate money to the institution, to specifically, let's say, your department, because they want to give back. And so the values that can be placed there are, what are the recent advancements that you've provided in terms of research through your department? What are your recent publications? Have you been in the news? Are you getting um, recent, like consistent data output, meaning that are you maintaining this research and is it growing? Her environment is going to be on YouTube, in this case specifically, looking for opportunities to give to your research by learning about it. So what type of publications do you have? Are folks like out there giving presentations that she can watch on YouTube? Are there conferences where there's specific seminars or research data that's being presented? Are there podcasts that are explaining and giving updates on that research? What influences her are, again, presentations, inquiries about recent donations, and her obstacles are discerning these investments and making sure that they're wise investments. If they give money to your department, are they going to be able to see benefits from that? Connecting with various research groups and making sure that that money gets well used. So she needs an excellent about section. Like your department site should very succinctly and clearly specify what it is that your department does, who is doing research at your department, and what is that research. So a great way to do that is to have kind of like a recent track record. So you're going to want to be able to show like news, things that are happening that are making these advancements. They want to see collaboration among other groups and not just siloed. So how is your department collaborating with other departments across the nation? How is your department collaborating with faculty members from other departments, either on campus or in like locally by like in the Midwest, for example. Contact information, it's always a bad thing if somebody wants to donate and they don't know where to go or who to contact. So make sure that you have that, and to see a full team, that you've got a lot of folks on your team. So let's go ahead and move forward. You can kind of see all three of them, and I'll let Hannah take it from here.
Okay, so Anne did a good job of kind of digging into the details of each of these three, but now how can we reach them without watering down our message? Because they're each kind of looking for something different, right? So one thing that they have in common is the desire to see success stories. They all want to see somebody who's gone before them and their kid turned out great. They are having a really successful career. The research is growing the department. These are all success stories that they want to see. So think about what kind of common interest different groups could have and then focus your content there. And then another good idea would be to be featuring this type of content on your homepage. And I think we have one more example from Anne for a lab site as well.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to mute. So if you're looking at a lab site, sometimes folks come to us and they say, well, that's fine and great that Future Students is a primary audience, but my website, that's not the case. Help me out. What do I do? So let's look at a lab site. With the lab site, our primary audience member is going to be, could be. So this, again, this just depends on your lab site and what your lab site is about, what your research is, that kind of thing. But let's pretend in this case that you could have a primary audience member of a researcher from an external organization who wants to collaborate with you on your specific research. So for lack of anything better, this person is from Denver, Colorado, and are interested in the effects of plant growth based on altitude. Was the best I could come up with for today. The values of this person are that they want similar things as we've seen with research advancement, being able to find collaborators and help funding research. So perhaps there's a way to collaborate and fund joint research projects, obtain grants, that kind of thing. Environment, YouTube, Facebook, conferences, research books, coffee shops. I think we can kind of generalize that. Influences, how has this research progressed? So usually and researchers are going to be able to fill this out even better, but oftentimes I'm sure that there's the elevator speeches of having to answer how your research has progressed or how is research going specifically, those kinds of things. And what's your latest, I saw you had a latest publication. What's that about? How can I assist? How can I get involved? That kind of thing. Obstacles, they're extremely busy preparing for tenure. They have conference presentations that they're preparing for. They're most likely teaching, and they're nervous about securing funding for their research. So what should a lab website offer this person? Research development articles, available equipment, what is it that you're doing in your lab that is unique to others that you might be able to help them out with, and maybe vice versa. So do you have equipment that they could use? Are you able to collaborate in other ways? Those are important things to promote. Researchers willing to collaborate. So if you have specific researchers in your lab that are making advancements on a specific finding that are looking for folks, then you can highlight them, promote them, bring that up to the surface so folks know that. Make sure that there are contact profiles for your faculty and lab projects, and then potentially a job board. Maybe this collaboration could result in an Iowa State student getting a job, getting an internship, being able to help in a lab, that kind of thing. And so it could go both ways in that regard. So those are things to think about in terms of a lab. And then secondary would be, again, we're going to bring back our donor. So we can look at the donor quickly. in this case, I think it's important to highlight on a lab site for donors certain things such as like that focus on progressive growth. What is it that your lab is doing to maintain and continue the momentum that it started? Oftentimes, I've seen labs where they get motivated, they have a huge grant, they're moving forward, and then what happens after that grant. I think that it would be good to see kind of that story of here's what we've done, this is how it was successful, this is where we're, what awards are your researchers getting because of it? What are the next steps? What launched the previous research project? What's launching the next research project? Those kinds of things are important. And I think that's about it for that one. Yep. I'll pass it back to
So
Ann.
again, sorry, Ann, we're going to look at common interests for these groups. And in this case, we kind of came up with that they want to see awards, recognitions, testimonials. So for this case, you might focus on content that relates to that. Okay, but other than common interests, how else can we reach these different persona groups? One tool at your disposal is the landing page. So by building a landing page for each specific audience, you can draw to them with specific elements that appeal to them. So you'd have a page for future students and a page for parents of future students and a page for donors. And you can speak directly to them that way without watering down your messaging. Okay, the next tip I would have is to know your personas and be where they are. Through Ann's examples, we saw that future students are on YouTube. So can we be creating content and putting it on YouTube like videos that draw them to their specific landing page? And that's the quickest way to get conversions. These people get me. They just got me. I'm reading through, they understand, I get the value, and I want to convert. Okay. And then lastly, know your value. Throughout the webinar, we've been mentioning value proposition, and that is the benefit that you can provide your users. So be honest with yourself about where you can provide the best value and showcase that information to your audiences. Odds are people landing on your site can find out what you do pretty easily, but how easy is it for them to find out why you do it? That's the value you can provide them, and that's what sets you apart from other websites. So some key takeaways from this presentation that I want you to kind of go away with is to avoid over-segmenting because it waters down your messages. And that you need to know your personas so that you can meet them where they're at. And lastly, your target audience versus your actual audience. Are they lining up? Is your site built for your actual users? Because if they're not, and you're not sure how to determine that, start with your current client base. Ask the people that are in your department, why did they choose you? Who are they? Start there. And if it's lining up, then you can better personalize your content by knowing and segmenting with these strategies. Okay. So now we have a couple of housekeeping things to wrap it up. I know we're going over a little bit, so I just wanted to share with you guys quickly that we've been building up our resources, and so you can go to our website and visit our resources tab, and we've generated a couple of worksheets for you to print out, fill out, and kind of dive deeper into your site's particular audience. And then I also made one based on the last webinar we did for your website purpose, so check those out. And then we've also recently launched a blog, and we have one blog posted up on our site right now about understanding your monthly analytics report. And in this blog, I kind of broke down what each section of the report can tell you and how you can use that to get better results from your website. So check out our blog. Our next webinar will be, I believe, in 2 weeks, and it is how to tackle that dated content. So we're kind of building up to getting into the thick of our website, so that's going to be exciting, and I believe Anne will be presenting this one. And then lastly, I just wanted you guys to know that you can always contact us at websupport@iowastate.com. I know we've gone over a little bit, so if you want to stick around and you have specific questions, Anne and I are happy to stay on for a little bit and make sure we're not missing anything. But other than that, that's what we have for you today.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Hannah. We are willing to stick around. We'd like to offer a little bit of time to talk about some of these things. If you would like to have a conversation with us, start to talk about some of these questions more in depth. I saw comments coming in uh, from Dr. Rosenblum. I think that it would be fantastic to start having these conversations. The examples today are going to be generic. I think it would be awesome to have some case studies where we have a future webinar having gone through this process. So if we took a department website, looked at it, I think there's so much more to these personas because the personas are really just to get the mindset, and then from there use the analytics to actually determine if your website is reaching those audiences, like Hannah alluded to in the last presentation. So from that, we can actually set goals, and the goals are going to be what's even more specific and very specific to your website. What is it that you want um, your website's purpose to be, and is it reaching that purpose? Is it accomplishing that goal? So we have ways of testing that and ways of seeing that through data.
I would add to that, just based on this comment, I saw that you're hoping for a more, built out persona that you can use, but I think that would give you a good starting point, but the real focus is going to be getting down to your website's users. And the best way to figure out what people are actually using your site for is to look at your current consumer base. So if you did everything based on something someone else prepared for you, you might not actually be reaching your site's users. So it's a good launching point, I would say, just like kind of what we presented, but it may not be specific to every single department or every single lab site. So just keep that in mind too, that we really want to outreach and figure out the exact users on your site.
Are there any questions, or does anybody want to hop in? Feel free. I will go ahead and stop this recording. I think I can do that here.